The tyrannical Galvatron was once the Decepticon leader Megatron, upgraded into a more powerful body by Unicron. Galvatron shares many qualities with his past self, and one of those is a tendency to get killed a lot. We've already taken a look at Megatron in the pit, but in this episode, we're going to be looking at Galvatron, and see whether he has died more than what he once was. But before we begin, I'd like to address some deaths I missed in previous episodes, as I always do. Commenter Charlie Too Many Numbers claims that I missed a whole bunch of them, beginning with how both Ironhide and Bumblebee were killed in the Decepticon campaign of the Revenge of the Fallen console game. He also says that in the Decepticon version of the DS game of the first movie, Optimus was killed by Megatron at the climax of the game, as was Starscream. In reverse, Megatron was killed by Optimus at the end of the Autobot game, and finally he says that Optimus was brought back to life in the Unite Warriors manga before he died again. To clarify, in earlier episodes of the pit, I avoided counting deaths from games for some reason, and so the deaths from the Decepticon DS game and Revenge of the Fallen games are indeed correct and will be added. Bumblebee met his end in the Revenge of the Fallen game after coming up against Megatron, and though fought ferociously, couldn't stand up to the strength of the Decepticon leader. Ironhide, on the other hand, fought a ferocious battle with Longhaul, but was eventually put down. As he said, the final level of Transformers Decepticons DS sees Megatron slaying Optimus before going after the traitorous Starscream, and finally putting an end to him and stealing the Allspark back. However, since the Autobot version of the DS game follows the exact same plot as the movie, I will not be including Megatron's death at the hands of Optimus at the end of the Autobot DS game. The Unite Warriors' death is a recent event and wasn't out when I made the first episode of the pit. Basically, Optimus is resurrected by the Autobots, but for a week only. Once his week is up, he simply passes away once again. So that's 1 to Starscream, 1 to Bumblebee, 2 to Optimus Prime, and 1 to Ironhide. Everyone give it up for Charlie, who is better at this than I am. Anyway, with that out of the way, it's time to look at Galvatron. We begin, of course, in the Generation 1 continuity. Though debuting in Transformers the movie, Galvatron survived the entirety of the original Generation 1 cartoon, though met his end in the most ridiculous way possible midway through the Headmasters cartoon. During his final battle with the 4 Autobot Headmasters, his foes formed a circle of friendship, head formation, and hit him with enough energy to collapse icebergs upon him, trapping him beneath the ice for eternity.
Come and help me, somebody, quickly!
Well, until he was revived as Super Megatron in Return of Convoy. What doesn't make sense about this death is that Galvatron was once able to survive a point-blank explosion that had enough power to destroy an entire planet, and yet couldn't dig himself out of some ice. Wow. Galvatron served as a major character in the second half of the Generation 1 Marvel comic, so much so that there were 2 versions of him. The climax of Time Wars in the Marvel UK comic saw the first Galvatron meeting his end after an epic battle with Optimus Prime and the Autobots. After fighting his rival to a standstill and tearing his way through the Wreckers and Mayhem attack squad, Galvatron was undone by the time rift his presence had created as it tore him apart and consumed his remains. This Galvatron was never seen again, though the second Galvatron met his end in the second to last issue of the Marvel US G1 comic, as he battled Fortress Maximus one last time. The battle was hard fought, but Maximus came out on top in the end, tossing Galvatron into a frozen lake. Is Galvatron secretly weak to ice or something? In the Regeneration 1 continuity, which followed on from the end of the Marvel G1 comic, Galvatron emerged from the ice he'd been buried in and returned as a threat to the galaxy. He was finally put down once and for all in the final issue of Regeneration 1, where he and Magnus fought for one final time. This time, Magnus emerges on top, snapping Galvatron's neck and crushing his head, finally putting an end to Galvatron. Galvatron made an appearance in the Generation 1 Find Your Fate Junior books, which are infamous for containing multiple endings featuring the deaths of characters. Surprisingly, Galvatron managed to escape death in the 3 books he appeared in, though he did have some ambiguous fates. In the book Autobot Alert, he and the other Decepticons were left immobilized in their spaceship in space by the Autobots, and in the book Invisibility Factor, the Decepticons were crushed by an avalanche. It was never specified whether he died in both of these situations. Now we must dip our toes into the incredibly confusing Japanese Generation 1 continuity, which never ceases to confuse the crap out of me. In Transformers Legends Volume 42, one battle sees Galvatron unleashing the new Decepticon weapon Trypticon against the Autobot Metroplex. Metroplex managed to destroy both Galvatron and Trypticon using an antimatter projector beam, but grievously wounded himself in the process. Galvatron was later revealed to have survived as a ghost in the Unite Warriors manga, as he managed to use the power of the creation matrix he stole from Rodimus. In the Henkai manga, Galvatron took a pretty intense beating from Optimus Prime, and was stabbed through the chest by the Autobot leader. Everyone thought he was dead, but surprise, he survived, as Cyclonus found out the hard way. Even when he was beaten to near death once again at the end of the series, he still managed to live on. Galvatron does not go down easily. In the final episode of Beast Wars 2, Farewell Leo Convoy, the Galvatron of this show was slain by Leo Convoy when the two fought one last epic battle. When he was hit by the final blow, Galvatron congratulated his enemy on the battle before he died, and the nemesis they were fighting on was destroyed in the process. Each of the 3 Unicron trilogy shows saw Megatron donning the Galvatron persona after some upgrades, and at the climax of each show he met his end. In Armada, after an epic final battle with Optimus, he was sucked into Unicron and vaporized when the Planet Eater was destroyed. He returned in Energon as he was revived by Alpha Quintesson. He will once again die at the end of the show when he sacrificed himself once again when he threw himself into the sun to prevent Unicron from taking over his mind. He returned again without explanation in Cybertron, though in the second to last episode of the series fought an absolutely epic final battle with his longtime nemesis, being impaled by Vector Prime's sword and fatally wounded, causing him to disappear once and for all. He was then seen battling Vector Prime in some place beyond space and time in the final episode. Jeez, calm down, Galvatron. In Dreamwave's Armada comic, it wasn't the Megatron native to that universe that perished, but rather a Galvatron from an alternate universe that appeared alongside other Heralds of Unicron. He battled Megatron, though was defeated when Megatron gained control of the Star Saber and slashed him to pieces. In the Beast Wars Uprising story Dawn of the Predacus, the beginning of the comic sees Tarantulas reporting to the High Council that Galvatron was dead. He had met his end sometime in the final days of the Great War alongside his enemy Optimus Prime in the year 2035. The High Council didn't really seem to mind. In the IDW Generation 1 continuity, Galvatron is not a reformatted Megatron, but instead a completely different character. He had a major role throughout their run, and saw a near-death experience when he was defeated by Optimus Prime and disappeared into the Heart of Darkness. He survived, however, and continued to serve as a threat until very recently, in which, once he came to Earth with his own army of Decepticons, he fought Optimus in one last final battle, before he was defeated and Optimus was forced to execute him for the greater good of the galaxy. Now we look at the Movieverse continuity. When Megatron was killed at the end of Dark of the Moon, the human organization KSI took it upon themselves to use his mind to build a new Transformer, that being Galvatron. Surprise! Megatron managed to regain consciousness, and now he had a new and more powerful body. Galvatron didn't really do anything in Age of Extinction, and disappeared at the end of the movie. However, the new Last Night movie claims that Megatron was making an appearance, not Galvatron. So, in a bit more of a figurative sense, Galvatron did indeed die. Not counting it though. And finally, we take a look at the incredibly complicated and non-descriptive Ask Vector Prime Facebook posts, which make reference to unexplored Transformers continuities and time streams. Galvatron appeared in many of these. The Galvatron of the Universal Stream Primax 185.0 Beta attempted to transplant his spark into Cybertron so he could become Grand Galvatron and crush the Quintesson forces that stood in his way, but his spark was destroyed by Rapture and the Dreadnoks during the transferal process. And finally, in Oryx 304.0 Epsilon, a form of the Armada Galvatron fought an epic war against Rodimus' Omnicons and Optimus Prime's Autobots. The war was interrupted when the Destructicons of another Universal Stream appeared, and the Decepticons formed a short-lived alliance with them. Once the Autobots and Omnicons were taken care of, however, the Destructicons betrayed the Decepticons and destroyed them all, including Galvatron. And with that, we head to the leaderboard. Galvatron finishes with one of the highest scores we've seen recently, with a death count of 13, placing him at number 5 just before Bumblebee. Looks like Megatron was better off as Galvatron, as he died a lot more in his previous body. Now, who's next? Thanks for watching. Quick, Headmasters, form the spinning circle of friendship! No, guys, ice is my only weakness. I can't get out of the ice, guys, help!
Somebody quickly!